Okay, ukulele players, let's talk about the B flat chord, the dreaded B flat chord. For most of us, this is our first foray into playing a bar chord, and hopefully not the last, although we certainly might feel like throwing the instrument out of a third-story window at a certain point when playing this chord. There are a couple of tips that are really useful when playing bar chords that make it both more of a fun endeavor and certainly less of a painful one. Well, the very first step is to make sure that your instrument is set up properly from either the shop that you bought it or your local luthier or guitar repair shop that you trust. Specifically, the action of the instrument, that just simply means how high the strings are off the fingerboard. And this is a very simple, very quick, and certainly very inexpensive adjustment that your shop can make. So bring it into them, tell them a little bit about the kind of playing that you're probably doing on the instrument, and make sure that the string height up here by the headstock at the nut, which is this plastic or bone component here that holds the strings, and also by the saddle or the bridge down here. Make sure the action is comfortable. So assuming the strings are at a comfortable height now and you've had it set up properly, first we're just going to get used to making a half bar on two strings with our index finger. We're going to put that index finger across the first fret, strings 1 and 2, and then we're going to try moving that barring finger up the neck. Make sure that your thumb is behind the neck as if you were to leave your thumbprint down the back of the neck so that we can make this clamping motion on the neck to support that barring finger. I suspect that most of us can do this pretty easily. Again, it's not as comfortable as playing an open C chord, but it's pretty doable. So if we play the famous passage from Smoke on the Water using that bar, starting from the open E and A strings, moving to the 3rd fret and the 5th fret, then open, 3rd fret, 6th and 5th, and then open, 3rd, 5th, 3rd, back to open. That's a fun example, of course, great at parties. And the fact that we're moving that bar around and playing a song with it means that this issue is really not about strength so much as it is about finger independence. So let's go back to that first fret where we're going to encounter the rest of our B flat chord. Put our barring finger at the first fret across those first two strings. And now we're going to bring our elbow in towards our body a little bit so that actually the left side of your finger is contacting the strings versus the flat part of it. Next, as we clamp down and play those notes cleanly, we're going to wiggle the other fingers. Okay, here's the next step. Get rid of the bar, shake out any tension that you might have in your hand. This time, we're going to take what I like to call the Spider-Man web shooter fingers. That would be middle and ring on our left hand. We're going to create a chord formation using those two fingers. Put your ring finger on the 3rd fret on that G or 4th string, and your middle finger on the 2nd fret on your C or 3rd string. We're making half of our B flat chord. It should have this sound. It's pretty cool all by itself. But while we have that portion of the chord, now we're going to wiggle our barring index finger while we do that. Let's do it again and shake out any tension you might have in your hand. Put those Spider-Man web shooter fingers back down on the 3rd and the 2nd frets, and then use your index finger, side of the fingertip, and clamp down on the first two strings. If you're still getting a muted sound and it feels like you're pressing as hard as you can, now you're going to move that index fingertip a little bit towards the ceiling so that you're actually covering 3 strings and not 2. If that produces a clean sound, that's going to be your fingering for the B flat chord. If it still feels like you're pressing with that index finger as hard as you can, and we're hearing a muted sound or some buzzing, try putting your index finger across all 4 strings. We're just looking for a spot on that barring finger where there's a nice flat surface to close all the strings. Make sure that your barring finger, just like you would any other fretted note on the instrument, is not on top of the fret and not far away from it on the left side of the fret box, but right next to it, right? Contacting the left side of the fret of the metal bar. That's the cleanest place to find a fretted note and the easiest place, requires the least amount of pressure. Again, we always play chords in a song in context with other chords, so the best way to practice this B flat chord is to shake out any tension. Think about the shape of the chord in your mind on the fretboard. Set up your ring and middle fingers again, web shooter fingers, and then put the bar in place. Then repeat. Relax. Set up the chord with that bar. So we learn bar chords because they are movable. Take that B flat shape and move it 1 fret, the whole chord shape. Move it 1 fret towards the body of the instrument and do it again. And again. And again, and again. So the real benefit to bar chords is they are movable. You can move them around, transpose them around the neck. For example, this B flat moved up 1, 2 frets so that your index barring finger is at the 3rd fret. This makes a nice closed position C chord. You might ask, well, why would I choose that bar chord, which is more of a mouthful or a fingerful, over our nice 1-finger open C? And the reason is that you can control the sustain of a fretted note. So if you want a rhythm where the chord does not ring out, but gets dampened between each strum, this C bar is actually a better choice, because by releasing the pressure in the left hand, you can mute the sound. So if you're playing for that swing dance night and you just happen to be playing the ukulele, you probably want to be playing your bar chords. Makes the rhythm a little bit more danceable. Or if you're accompanying yourself on a slower song, you might want that sustain of an open C chord. So it's nice to have the choice of both. And finally, the trickiest part for us as adult students of the ukulele is that we want everything to sound perfect right away, and we certainly have years of experience of listening to music and knowing what notes performed cleanly sound like on the instrument. So we end up bringing very high standards initially to our learning process. And at this point, I'd argue that the most important step is learning the chord shape first versus getting it perfect. So if you're playing this B flat chord in the context of a song, the most important part is that you get to that B flat and then you get to the next chord in time. And your fingers are going to, over the days and weeks that you practice this chord, they're going to dial in exactly how much pressure and where to apply it. But the main thing is memorizing that shape correctly so that your fingers can get back there in time. So hopefully you get some use out of that in your ukulele playing when it comes to this dreaded and often maligned B flat bar chord. Certainly applies to any other bar chord you might play on the instrument. Thanks again for listening. If you have any ideas for ukulele lessons or material that you'd like explained, please post in the comments below. And also be sure to hit subscribe. This is Ben Abrahamson. We'll see you soon.